You wake up to 14 emergency notifications you ignored while sleeping. At first, you think it's a software glitch. Then you notice something wrong. No traffic outside your apartment. No voices in the hallway. A helicopter passes overhead, so low the windows tremble. Your phone vibrates again. Emergency alert. Avoid contact with individuals displaying extreme aggression. Somewhere below, a woman screams for help. A second voice shouts, "Don't let him bite you!" The screaming stops. A door slams somewhere in your building. Footsteps begin running up the stairs. And in this fictional scenario, that is the moment you realize the infection is not spreading because the dead are rising. It is spreading because the living refuse to believe what they are seeing. The first confirmed case arrives at a downtown emergency room at 2:17 a.m. A man in his 30s is restrained after attacking two paramedics during transport. He is feverish, disoriented, and violently reactive to anyone who approaches. Doctors suspect drugs. Police suspect mental illness. Within 20 minutes, 3 nurses are injured. Hospital security treats the incident as a criminal assault, not an infectious threat. Meanwhile, a bystander uploads shaky phone footage to social media. A blood-covered patient lunging at hospital staff while alarms echo through the corridor. The clip spreads faster than any official statement. Authorities urge the public to remain calm while investigators assess an isolated medical incident. But rumours evolve by the minute. Rabies mutation, bioweapon leak, government cover-up. People are attacking strangers. Real epidemics have shown that fear and misinformation can spread rapidly during crises. And in this fictional outbreak, that is exactly what happens next. Hour 1 to 6. Emergency dispatch centres begin receiving an unusual pattern of calls. Unexplained assaults, biting attacks, individuals displaying extreme aggression, victims becoming violent shortly after exposure. Hospitals fill with both the injured and the panicked. Television anchors struggle to verify information. One station reports a city-wide disturbance. Another claims there is no evidence of contagious transmission. You keep watching because the contradictions are impossible to ignore. But most people continue their routines. Coffee shops open, trains run, children are taken to school. The city behaves as if normality can be preserved through sheer habit. Hour 6 to 24. By afternoon, the first transportation disruptions begin. Subway service is suspended after multiple violent incidents underground. Traffic lights continue cycling through red, yellow, and green, even as intersections become gridlocked with abandoned vehicles. Fuel stations develop lines stretching for blocks. Your phone starts receiving conflicting alerts every few minutes. Shelter in place, evacuate affected districts, avoid unnecessary travel. Mobile networks become overloaded as millions attempt to contact family members simultaneously. Calls fail. Messages arrive hours late. People leave work early, trying to reunite with loved ones before quarantine zones expand. Sirens echo through streets that are becoming emptier by the hour. And then a new report appears. Several infected patients have disappeared from hospital isolation. The outbreak is no longer confined to a single building. By the third day, hospitals are operating beyond capacity. Exhausted medical staff work double and triple shifts while trying to separate trauma victims from potentially infected patients. Protective equipment runs low. Ambulances wait hours before they can unload new arrivals. But the infected are not the biggest problem yet. The real crisis is logistical collapse. Modern cities depend on continuous movement, food deliveries, fuel shipments, medical supplies, sanitation services, and accurate information. When fear interrupts those flows, shortages appear far faster than most people expect. Supermarket shelves empty within hours. Pharmacies run out of antibiotics, pain medication, and basic protective supplies. Delivery drivers stop reporting for work. A quarantine perimeter is established around the central outbreak district. For a few hours, it appears to work. Then, thousands of frightened residents attempt to leave simultaneously. Checkpoints become overwhelmed. Arguments turn into fights. Some people hide symptoms to avoid separation from their families. Others flee before screening can occur. The quarantine is breached not by the infected alone, but by human desperation. Neighborhoods begin isolating themselves, blocking streets with parked cars and improvised barriers. The city is fragmenting into disconnected islands of fear. By the end of the first week, the infected are no longer the only danger. Exhaustion, fear, and misinformation have become just as deadly. Psychologists who study real disasters consistently observe predictable patterns. Denial. People insist the crisis is exaggerated, even as evidence surrounds them. Panic. Others make catastrophic decisions simply to feel they are doing something. Rumor-driven violence. A single false message, the water is contaminated, or the military is abandoning the city, spreads faster than any verified announcement. Decision fatigue sets in. You have spent 7 days evaluating every sound, every stranger, every message, every possible escape route. Sleep becomes fragmented. Trust becomes scarce. Small groups begin forming inside apartment buildings, office towers, and residential streets. Some groups cooperate. Others collapse under suspicion and conflicting priorities. Who gets the remaining food? Who stands watch? Who decides whether a sick neighbor is allowed inside? Most people imagine survival as a physical challenge. This fictional scenario reveals something more disturbing. Survival becomes a test of judgment, trust, and emotional endurance. And the next phase is where infrastructure failure becomes a human catastrophe. 2 weeks after the first case, the city has not exploded in cinematic fireballs. It has simply stopped functioning reliably. Water pressure becomes intermittent because treatment plants cannot maintain normal staffing levels. Garbage accumulates in alleys and stairwells. Refrigerated food spoils as power outages become more frequent. Fuel is reserved for emergency vehicles, leaving most civilians stranded where they are. Medical care is now extremely limited. A minor injury that would normally require a short clinic visit becomes a serious threat when hospitals are inaccessible. Communication networks still function occasionally, but they are fragmented. A text message may arrive hours late. An emergency broadcast may contradict local conditions entirely. Small survivor communities begin emerging. One apartment floor sharing supplies. A church operating a communal kitchen. Neighbors pooling batteries, water containers, and medical knowledge. The infected remain dangerous, but what changes everything is the slow realization that no immediate rescue is coming. And that is when the city truly begins to die. What most people get wrong about surviving a zombie apocalypse is that they imagine dramatic heroics instead of long-term decision-making. Common assumption: leave the city immediately. What the scenario reveals: mass evacuation often creates traffic jams, fuel shortages, and exposure to larger crowds. You can survive alone. What the scenario reveals: isolation reduces conflict, but it also eliminates shared skills, shared watchfulness, and emotional support. Stockpiles are all that matter. Information, cooperation, and routine become just as important as food and water. Every stranger is a threat. Blind trust is dangerous, but total distrust destroys the cooperation required for long-term survival. The most effective survivors in this fictional scenario are not the strongest fighters. They are the people who avoid unnecessary crowds, verify information before acting, conserve resources early, maintain daily routines, and build trustworthy relationships before panic destroys social bonds. Because what happens after the power fails changes everything. The apocalypse did not begin when the first person became infected. It began when trust disappeared. When neighbours stopped believing each other. When every phone notification became suspect. When hospitals could no longer separate the sick from the frightened. When fear moved faster than any virus ever could. In this fictional scenario, the infected did not destroy civilization overnight. Civilization unravelled one decision at a time. A rumour shared without verification. A family hiding symptoms. A crowd rushing the last fuel station. A community choosing suspicion over cooperation. In the end, the survivors were not simply the strongest. They were the people who could stay human while the world around them forgot how. When the city went silent, the most terrifying sound was not the screaming in the streets. It was the moment you realized you could no longer tell who was infected, who was afraid, and who had already given up on being human.